handlebars and stems. Is that why my wrist hurts so much? That can't be true. So many handlebars this year. And one of the conversations I've had a lot over the years is handlebars, stems, lifespan, fatigue, that sort of thing. So I thought it best to take a moment to discuss a few things. First fact, and I recently discovered this, did you know, as mountain bikers, riding our terrain, the roots, the rocks, the bumps, the hits, we actually take more abuse through the handlebars to our body than the legal limits of a jackhammer. Think about that for a minute. Maybe that's the reason why my wrist hurts so much at this point in my life. I mean, I'm only 42 years old, but seriously, I have some issues with my wrists, and if it's from the constant jackhammering, exceeding the jackhammering, then maybe that's it. But let's talk about handlebars, fatigue life, materials. So what I've been telling my clients over the last couple of years, I'm not going to say that, over the last 25 years of being in the industry is, for mountain bikers in particular, it's a pretty minor expense if you're riding aluminum to replace your bars every 2 or 3 years, regardless. One of the things you want to avoid though is failure. So aluminum has a fatigue life. Enough constant of those jackhammering hits it takes will start to fatigue the material, and it will at one point fail. Carbon has a longer fatigue life, in essence, unless it exceeds the structural strength of the carbon, it's not going to break. Whereas aluminum has a fatigue life, enough cycles and it will bend. An aluminum bar, though, built correctly, can take a harder hit than carbon, and you can keep riding it. So carbon, you take a good fall, and any little cracks, you know what, I'm going to show you what happens. Alright, I'm back. Okay, so this bar here, I rode out on this, but if you can see this clearly, this took a hit to a tree at a fairly good clip, and the bar did that to the brake, right? You can see it's all bent and misshapen, and the bar ended up with very, very minor mark in it. But this is enough that if I kept riding it, there's a potential for a small splinter, a small stress fracture in the fibers, and that could just let go on a good hit. So off it came, replaced, it's done. I haven't been able to find tested data independent of the manufacturers for fatiguing on mountain bike stuff, but there is a road bike one done with some controlled tech, road bars, aluminum and carbon, and the carbon bars had like a 600,000 cycle to potential failure, and the aluminum had 450,000 cycles to potential failure. So it's pretty high. That's a lot of riding. And the aluminum bar, they were of similar uses and builds and strengths. The aluminum bar took a harder hit, drop hit, before it failed compared to the carbon. And that's not to say that it's always going to be that way. A carbon bar laid up for downhill will have a lot of strength. Same thing, an aluminum bar that's thicker and heavier will have a higher strength ratio to it, so it can take a heavier hit and keep going. But it's worth noting that with bars, if it's carbon, if you notice any cracks, replace it. Carbon will go a lot longer than aluminum though in terms of fatiguing. But an aluminum bar, I do mine every 2 years. You know, aluminum bar is a minor expense instead of having your jaw broken and your teeth replaced. And then stems is the other one. So stems, I typically just replace it at the same time, but I mean, it's likely they'll go a little bit longer because they're not having that same flex stress that a bar will have. So your stem you can replace every 3 to 5 years is what I've recommended. And I mean, I just do them both at the same time, partly because I want to feel safe, but also partly because I just like to try new stuff all the time. Go ride more awesomer. So do some more push-ups, choose your material, and when you need to, just replace it. You don't want that snapping the next time you take a 20-foot jump and case it on the landing. One final thought. It's been a crazy 2 years. People have been buying a lot of used bikes. You buy a used bike, just get yourself a brand new set of bars and a brand new stem, install them on the bike, because you don't know how hard they've been ridden and how long they've actually been ridden. Save yourself a headache, save yourself a medical bill.